Too Damn remix came up in this random events phase. I really hate that mechanism. Had some cool things to begin with, but I hope the French didn't lose any money. I don't think they had any. There was now a French succession crisis. There was supposed to be a Polish one, but we decided, hey, that was just a dream. England, then Spain, then Austria have the opportunity to claim the French throne at this point. Essentially, if they win a fight, they force France to become something called a weak ally. I don't know what that means. The danger here, of course, is they have a free casus belli, but no one terribly wants to go to war with France right now. France is pretty mighty. Yes, they have a big debt, and their army is only maybe at less than half strength, really, if you look at what's here. But damn, they're still a mighty power. England, certainly, I don't see doing it. Spain, well, France wants a war with Spain. So I can't see that. And Austria, of all people, has no real ability to do anything of value here. So I don't see that going anywhere. So we move to the commercial. Commerce got all messed up this turn. Holland didn't get a lot of their shipping in. And England kind of got screwed too. You can see I think they only won one out of their contested things. They have these guys. So we've got kind of a complex situation here. Holland paid a dozen. There are people who paid more than that, I think. France only put a dozen in. They're fine. Okay, so Holland gets away, I think, along with France with the most. But France is going to get a bonus for putting double and another bonus for being above people, if I recall correctly. I can never remember modifiers told us. Trading fleets in war. That's if a war happens. Okay. So they paid twice as much. They paid more than all other companies. No one got the more than all others. Oh, that's not a 2-point bonus. It's the twice as much and more than other people. Okay. So France is going to go up by 2 in that case. Holland doesn't get any bonus because they didn't pay double and they didn't go over anyone. Spain paid double and they went over someone else, so they go up by 2. England got hurt. Someone paid better dividends than they did. And then our last one is the Swedes, who paid 4. That's not going to give them any bonus. They've gotten down to 2. But they paid double their costs, so they go up 1. So we see some neat movement on the commerce. Usually it's pretty static, to tell you the truth. Holland's going to get its 2 points or whatever. Politically, nothing happened. Nobody wants to take advantage of that casus belli. And there's, the fatigue that's affecting me is affecting the world, right? Yeah, and we had some shakeup with the miners. Spain spent money to go after Savoy because France has no cash. So they said, well, what the hell? But because it's a peace turn, there's a chance that miners will disalign. And in this case, Baden and Bavaria. Baden was a French ally. Bavaria, a Polish one, have both gone into the fray. So now they're up for bidding for other players next turn. But, the attempt of dislodging something from someone else, chances are it just goes neutral and is in that kind of position where you have to bid for it. So putting a huge bid in doesn't make a lot of sense. Holland's bid on Portugal, for example. Not terribly sensible, but it, they had seen England went with a big bid against them last time. So, okay. But it fails so easily. So that puts us on the royal phase where we take care of the monies for the different countries. So many signs that this game didn't go through the kind of rigor that one would expect of a rule set. For example, the peasant pacification if a peace phase. That's where peasant unrest goes away, one per year of the turn in a peace turn. Well, you don't know how many years it is at this point. It's just really difficult to understand. Probably there was some kind of attempt to, make the rules and maybe tweak them a little bit, but you get the feeling that the people who played this got so used to it, the playtesters, and this is often the case in games, but in this case it's glaring, got so used to it that they decided, the hell with it. It's good, So the rules never underwent the kind of testing that they really require. Now, all AWE games kind of have this factor, though. It's the nature of the beast. So, with the economic, what the hell happened? Yeah, one of the interesting things is this is your opportunity to reduce your debt. Well, most of the countries actually said, the hell with that. I don't really need to. I think two people did it. Turkey and Poland. And Poland succeeded, Turkey did not. The reason being, we're going to regain that political point that we lose. Holland, well, they're way up there, and they're dropping anyway. They figure they can maintain their debt. The most interesting is that France, with a big 45 public debt, they're paying $9, half their income, but they have a huge income each turn to service this sucker. But it's just not worth it because they're growing too slowly in terms of prestige, so they want to keep it out there. That's hard luck. Spain, well, they made a big deal to gain the spaces that they got by spending their company money. So they're going to wait until they fall back as well. Even though they're paying 8 a turn, that's, again, about half their money. But there you have it. Prussia, building more boats. The Spanish boat didn't get built this turn, did it? I think it did. I don't know. Can't remember. And that puts us on the military type stuff. Now, I don't know if the French can go react to that, but as it stands right now, that's just like not French anymore, but nobody can go intervene in it. It's not like EU where if you let something like that fester, something changes. It doesn't change here. We go to the time phase. Let's see how many years we got here. We're going to have 10 years, which is going to put us out to 87. And, well, that's enough time to clear these suckers. And I'm sure we have a possibility of some deaths, because that's a big jump. Okay, so we have the increases here and the points go here. The impressive thing is the points that come at the end of the scenario, because this scenario officially ended in 77, plus a die roll, whatever. Holland and Turkey each got, well, Holland got like 20 points. 15 for holding their 2 territories, and 5 more for Flanders being Spanish. And Turkey got 15 for Austria, which is putting them way in the lead. They're becoming the real threats. Now, scenario 3 is going to end in 97. It was supposed to only start in 81, but, And now, the victory for this, we'll see if there's any special rules. France gets 5 for Lorraine, Flanders, Brabant, Palatinate, and Savoy. They have a lot of things they want to capture at this point. Unfortunately, I lose track of these things because they're just victory point bonuses in this game. In EU, they're built into the events so that you get a right to attack them. I don't know if they have claims. I'll have to take a look at that. So maybe, I don't know. Holland and England both get 5 for Flanders being Spanish or Austrian. Turkey gets 15 for Austria. And Poland gets 5 if Vienna's not Turkish. I'm going to have to take a look at these. I'll come back with what the special is. I'm afraid that's the end of play until I get my wife's opinion. She's asleep right now. This, I can't go through all this on my own. So, I get to play my video game and do other things to putz around. But, actually I like how this is turning out in terms of the way the victory points work with this integrated. The big jumps, the people who are way ahead for historical reasons. I mean, look, Turkey has Austria, right? Holland has not been defeated by the English. They still are the major merchant power. These are big things, and you can see the nature of maybe not power politics. I never like these build-up victory point systems in terms of representing the real power politics. Because, you do well during one period and then people are just going to beat on you. All these games, EU, Empires in Arms, they all have this kind of feature of, yeah, you've scored a lot of points. I don't really care that you're not a threat anymore. We have to keep you ruined for the rest of the game to have a chance to win. But, on the other hand, it does do something towards directing people's efforts. EU's victory point system is just too broken for the interplayer diplomacy to have any effect. But, my natural inclination is to avoid war. So in EU, that happens a lot because, hey, victory points don't mean a damn thing. This thing's just broken. This game, I feel like, yeah, we're within enough range that, you can look at this and say, yeah, somebody's got to do something about Holland and somebody's got to do something about Turkey. And, countries like France, who you might be worried about, are going to be favored in this. I don't like what it represents, but I do like the fact that it does cause these wars when, there is actually a way to handle them in this. Okay, so scenario 3 is the War of Augsburg. Unfortunately, I'm left with some decisions to make here, because much of this I'm going to ignore. Obviously, so let's see here. France and Poland, who I guess is one player, has an event on the first turn, which is going to be the reunions, politic of reunions, and that will give everyone free cast spelling. Now, I'm not going to hand them an event for free, but the problem is the victory conditions assume they have it. And we'll see why in a little while. Of course, last time there was an assumption that they'd get Holland, so maybe I'll just diss them with this. I don't think that the extent of the victory conditions in this game, like I said a little earlier, is going to be heavy enough to make it unwinnable by certain powers with good diplomacy. It is just unwinnable in EU. Russia's not going to have current status things. I'm not going to change these. So pensions, Russia's reform hasn't happened yet. Discussion about Sobieski seems to indicate that he shouldn't be a general. He comes in as a general. I mean, he comes in as a king and with a general's value. So I don't know. You're allowed to be both. When Charles II dies, we get the Duke of York replaced with James. And then if James dies, we get the union with William III. And that's going to follow some of the rules of Spanish succession, which creates this weak alliance rule, which I had to look up, where Holland, I think, is subsidiary to England. And they break all other alliances and they form an alliance with England, and they can't really work outside of that. Now, this kind of sucks because England is actually the lesser power at this point. Now, I don't mind, that William still favors England rather than Holland, but England may have goals against Holland, which they're not going to be able to pursue during the Joint Kingdom. The trade war never really happened. But I really do want New York back. Maybe I can arrange some kind of deal to get it. But I don't control them that way. I missed this one. I don't know what that is. While William's the king, there's a better chance of an ethnic revolt, I think, in Ireland. Yeah, I sort of skipped over the end of that somehow. And Sicily being in rebellion, well, again, that's status. The problem, though, comes to when we look at the victory conditions. And remember, I'm adding this stuff, these victory conditions, to the game, essentially. France getting 5 points for all those regions. I already talked about that. That's going to be tough. But I don't really want to hand the Chambers of Reunion over. So, France may have to make some declarations of war and get some of those regions because they're not going to have the chit that they needed. One thing it means is, and I've somewhat done this in the game, take things that you think historically the country should get, because I don't know the victory conditions in advance. So, for example, Poland is going to want Podylia. Russia probably wants Ukraine back. They want this area. I've tried to follow that kind of flavor to the game, but in some cases, it's, I like to err in favor of peace, basically, because essentially I'm not a warlike guy. Been France's goals in this scenario. I'm blowing hot and cold on whether or not they should just freely have the reunion capability for the first term. I simply don't see how they can make those easily without it. What do they want? Lorraine, Flanders, Brabant, Palatinate, and Savoy. Across the line, who owns Savoy right now? France actually owns them, don't they? Yeah. So they probably won't turn against Savoy, but I could definitely see Flanders and Brabant gives me Spain. We could also go against Lorraine, which will put us on a collision course with Austria. I just think that without that special ability, we've got kind of an issue here. Speaking of that special ability, the Swedes actually drew it. And I was kind of considering, well, could they sell it to France? What's France going to offer them, right? Especially since Sweden is allied with Spain. I think I said Spain the first time. No, Sweden got it. And they really don't want to see this war happen. So, that's where we're going to be there. Holland has a minister counter. Now they've lost their naval minister. I think they're going to roll for it simply because it's so likely you'll lose your chits if you don't roll for an event. And that's one that's generally useful. But only if I get a naval minister will it help me, actually, at this point. I misread that. It's a mutiny, actually. My eyes aren't terribly good, and the writing on the counter is small, so unless I hold it up and pay a lot of attention, I'll often misread what they are. All right. So at this point, we move into the commercial phase. And the thing is, this is a peace turn, which I should mark down here, which is kind of a problem because it may last 20 years, and if it does, we run past the era. of the last thing. We clearly do, so the victory points wouldn't go out that way. Partially a good turn for Holland. They were able to do the high competition. They knocked out a Spanish and Swedish boat. The Spanish had just built one, so they net nothing out of it. You can also see they got their 2 points. Other people, Sweden and England, managed to get a point of prestige off it. They still had to make rolls, and Sweden's down to 1 ship now, over here doing the spice run. Not a great situation, but it's not a terrible situation. What they don't want is to get knocked down to nothing. I think they can still build boats. Yeah. So if they have $5 in their company treasury, they'll still be allowed to build boats. But otherwise, they will have to go through, I think, the process of starting a corporation again, which means collecting $10 in the company treasury through taxes, which they make. They get $4 a turn off of it, and then making the roll off that. So they may well want to get another boat in place just to try to protect that, because it is kind of nice. On the turns that they get on the turns they get the 1 spice, they'll get the ability to pay double, I think. That sucker's worth, maybe not. That sucker's worth $3. On turns that they don't get it, well, hopefully the other turns will help pay for that, the overage there. With 2 boats, they were having more trouble, because this is worth 1.5. The other one they had was a triple over in sugar, which is 4/3, which kind of meant they were less likely to make the double payout at any given time. I hope you understand what I'm trying to express there. Essentially, the fact that there is competition for it reduces the value of the space, so the expected value would be 4/3. On any given turn, they're going to either make 4 or nothing. And over here, on any given turn, they make 3 or nothing. But another high competition could knock them out of the ability to play this extra little prestige bonus. All right, on to the diplomacy, and and yes, I'm going to give France a notional chit to allow them to do the reunions this turn only, which they're certainly going to try to do, because they have a lot of victory points on the line for that. Now that goes against, because everyone else is kind of looking at, let's beat up on Holland, let's beat up on Turkey. I'm not quite sure what the effect of all of it is, but we'll see. It's time to forge the great alliances. And Austria, Russia, and Poland. And between Austria and Russia, they can allow Poland to declare war on people, even if Sweden doesn't want them to, are creating an alliance. This requires that Austria break its Turkish alliance. The alliance is designed to attack Turkey. Austria, why are they in it? I mean, they're not a big army or anything. They really, really want Hungary. And Russia and Poland, well, approached them and said, look, you can get some of Hungary back. You can get Austria back, which is vital to us. And you can be the person who actually declares war, because you have a casus belli, and the rest of us, Poland probably does. Anyway, so that's attractive, and they formed that. Another one started to form. Here's the problem. France has the reunions, but Spain, England is looking at, hey, we'd like to take Holland down. Who do we need for this? Well, Prussia would be our most powerful land force to exert force on Holland. Spain, you have land forces too, and here's what's really important, because Prussia doesn't really want to do this alone, but I don't have the navy to face Holland alone. You have a big navy, about as big as England's. how about you joining? And Spain's like, that's cool, but I'm allied with Sweden. What's up with that? Okay, well, we need to add Sweden. And initially, it all sounded good. And then Sweden started thinking, I have a reunions too. And I'm interested in Pomerania this turn. I'd like to grab it. I get victory points for it at the end of the phase. It's about the only thing that I can add to my empire. So Sweden kind of says, yeah, you know, I'm okay with it as long as we're not inviting Prussia. And England's like, Prussia's the point. I'm forming this alliance for the sole purpose of getting Prussia's army into Holland. So that's beginning to dissolve. There's another tack, which is that Holland buys England off with New York. In the long run, that may not be a great move, but because, well, Quebec's got wood and New Orleans has cotton. So it's not going to affect the shipping too much. The reason England might be susceptible to that is if there's a big war and Holland loses big time, well, Holland's going to be their ally. William is going to inherit the throne. Now, that probably isn't really crossing Charles II's mind right now. I think he's still in charge. Yeah, this is the historical, or the test date. But there are, you could say, well, there are some ties, etc. there. There's a family relationship, which led to the ascension of William and Mary. So, damn, I don't know what to do. It's kind of a mess here because I'm working out the declarations of war, but here was the miners' situation. That's $3 for Bavaria. Actually, Turkey and Poland spent the same. Poland has a higher prestige, so they get to go first, and ended up not getting it. And in fact, France didn't get Baden. England didn't do anything to Portugal. Great. So, a couple of people have free declarations of war. Everybody in the world has a free declaration of war on France if they want it. Nobody wanted it. But France has a free declaration of war on anyone that they can that they have claims to. Now, they have claims to two things that they're interested in: the Spanish Netherlands, and they're not going to declare war on Savoy, that's their ally, although it might be useful, it gives them points, in Lorraine. Now, Lorraine is strange. I think it's controlled by the Austrians? Yeah, it's still controlled by Austria. So that's going to put France at war with Austria and Spain. Well, Austria is not sure if she wants to call her allies. Poland, so Spain calls her allies. And this was acceptable. We had a full realignment of the alliances here. I don't know if I explained this, but the Spanish broke their alliance with Sweden in order to join one with England and Prussia, with the intention of saving her territory from France, and, if possible, launching an attack on Holland. It didn't stop France. France went and made an alliance with Sweden. Sweden's interested in a war with Prussia. Hey, it's all good, right? Well, Prussia looks pretty potent. I don't know what Sweden's chances are, but Sweden still has quality units. They do throughout the game. Prussia hasn't gotten it yet, so Sweden has a technical superiority over everyone else on the board. Still. The reforms of Gustavus here. So we've got two alliances here, and then the Austrians, they'd like to call their allies in, but there's kind of a problem. So what we have here is secondary declarations of war, which we want to make against Turkey. Now, Austria's allies are not entirely opposed to the idea of going to war with Sweden. And I think they're actually going to avoid a war with Turkey. And Austria is going to call her allies in. And we have a second alliance here of Russia, Poland, Austria against the Sweden-France alliance. This is problematic. The two people we wanted to hit, Austria and Turkey, they're scot-free. Not a good situation. Everybody's blaming France for it, but the honest truth is, if Sweden hadn't pushed their way in, this probably wouldn't have happened. Just an ugly, ugly situation, but France didn't want to give up their special bonus on the reunions and all the victory points that they get if they can get that. That's sort of their only way forward that they see. So now they and Sweden are alone against pretty much the rest of the world, and Holland and Turkey are there. Yeah, we didn't do anything. Great. All right. Unfortunately, declarations of war are in section 18 rather than anywhere near the diplomatic rules. So now this is one of a few of the more annoying setups here. Now we're going to see minor country reactions and some other little diplomatic aspects. We're going to see if the minors enter the war. We also have to set all those damn feudal troops on the board too. If France hadn't made the error of attacking Lorraine, this wouldn't be so bad. Or if they had only attacked Lorraine. But let's say they went for Brabant and Flanders, which gets them a good deal of power, actually. Then they'd be Spain. Then they'd be facing the alliance they intended, or that was intended to be brought about. Their thought was, everybody's focused enough on Turkey, they'll let me get it easily. It just didn't work out that way. Okay. Shit. Neutrality happens before the political phase. I screwed up and did it in the other order. I'm going to leave it as it stands. We're entering the royal phase. Some of the minors entered the war. Not many. Obviously, Lorraine's in there. Hesse came in on Prussia's side. Anhalt's going to be on Austria's side. Actually, I don't think I can put this here. Let's see. I've got the leaders to put down too. Looking to see if there are any others. I don't see any others that came into play. Some of the other all of the other minors remained with their powers, though. They succeeded in living through the neutrality phase. So, we pretty much have the war we're set up. And notably, things like Bavaria that were fought over diplomatically, Saxony, these didn't come into play at all. Okay. I'm not sure what I'm feeling a little bemused, as if there's something that I forgot about. So, obtaining additional claims. For example, Poland has no claim to the Baltic states, but they would like to get them. But they're not going to lay claim at this point. Russia does have claim up here, I believe. And now that Peter's in play, I think I'm allowed. Not sure if my army's been reformed yet. I got to check that. It may be in 1700 that it comes in, or it may be with Peter. There's no year on Peter as to when he actually supposed to come in. I think we had an early death. If Peter takes the field, and you probably want him to with that 2 leadership, well, he has to make a roll to see how well he does early in his first battle. After that, he becomes a 2 leader. Well, we'll see what happens. By the way, had this alliance tried to move against Turkey, they might have failed, which is one reason they're piling in on Sweden, essentially. Russia is the real driving force here. Austria was unhappy about the Lorraine, though. And Poland's kind of like, well, if you're going to call me as an ally, I'm going to come, and we'll see what happens. We get done with the royal phase, funding all the armies, etc. So Holland tossing money towards the French. Basically, their feeling is, hey, the longer this horrible little war goes on, the better it is for us. So we think the French are going to have trouble. Let's give them some extra cash. Bought them an artillery and give them some cash to use for supplying their forces, basically. Prussia continues to build her navy. I think she's maxed out at 3 ships at this point. But, you know, they're facing powers with navies, and there's some reason for it. Distributed the leaders. We have Luxembourg over here. Turken Lewis or whatever. I can't read it. Over here. Sobieski and Peter are on the board. Now, Peter's got the special roles. He has to make a check to see if he's any good when he first goes into battle. But then after that first battle, he's a rated 2 leader, no matter what. Unless there's some scenarios or some situations, I think, where he matches up, I think, against Charles the 12th, he gets a chance of being a better leader. We've got things like that everywhere. This is still a peace turn, so we're not going to see any battle. We're going to see movement to prepare for the battle. And we don't know how many years this turn is. It could be 20 years, and all this could be kind of moot. Often in this game, I just did the military phase in a peace turn, setting up the war. You see the English moving down into Flanders to help the Spaniards defend it. Swedes piling their forces up to prepare what looks like a hopeless case, really. The Austrians shifting over into the Tyrol, prepared to move in and try to defend either Lorraine or perhaps move through, well, they're not allied with the Spaniards, so they're not going to be able to do that. Everybody's gathered their forces. These forces are gathered at a point, to a level at which, you know, spread out throughout the country, they didn't have to roll for supply because they were in their mustering zones. Now, though, they're no longer in the mustering zones, so they have to roll for supply. But the truth of the matter is, and I've kind of ignored it largely, you can pay $1 and you reduce your supply risk. And somewhat more, the disturbing fact in the game, that's, you could say, well, geez, you're an idiot if you don't do that. Yeah, the problem is that you have to paw through your pieces if they're possibly in their mustering zone, because those guys don't count. So you don't know how big your stack actually is. And that's kind of what I've been ignoring. But not paying the money is just stupid. We also have the English shifting quite a few forces over to attack Quebec, since there's apparently some sort of militia and maybe a fort, but the fort doesn't really matter. And I'm going to say no, there isn't a fort in general, because the kind of fort we're talking about is something like Louisbourg. You know, it's the equivalent of Lille or something, and it suffers the same kind of roles for surrender. So I just can't see that. But it does make sense that every colony would have a militia. So I had to put more than 1 unit there. I put 3 in there for the simple fact that 3 gives me a better table to roll on. I can't use any generals over there, not until I start getting the colonial generals. So now the most interesting thing of this is how many years just went by? Only 4. That's not too bad. So that's going to put us up to 91. And that's going to affect some things. I got to check leaders and such. I had a number of losses and such not. The Grand Elector's gone. The Turks are running through leaders like mad. This is the period in their history where there were just so much court intrigue that people were being murdered left and right. It was, you know, like some of the bad Roman periods. England, though, is the big one. James is gone. That means William III's in charge, and that means Holland's England's minor ally, which they can't bring them into the war. They can't force them into the war because this alliance situation has already played out. But it does mean that the Dutch can't sort of slip their way into this. They can keep funding France for whatever that's worth. All I got left now is the victory point phase. Just adding these together, and everything moves by one. Nothing exciting here. We'll probably catch a look at the victory points next turn.